And welcome to this week's edition of the Steele Report.
Down! Down!
Today on the program, I'm welcoming back to the Steele Report David O'Brien, an attorney advocate for Iowa families and individuals. We're going to hear from him as our program begins right now.
Now from KWWL, this is the Steele Report.
Down!
This week on the Steele Report, you are watching law enforcement body cam video of an incident in Maquoketa in which a man named Drew Edwards would die in law enforcement custody in Jackson County after being tasered. No charges criminally were ever filed in this case, no criminal charges, but the city of Maquoketa and Jackson County together agreed to a $4.5 million settlement to the family of Drew Edwards. $4 million from the city of Maquoketa and $500,000 from Jackson County. For the family of Drew Edwards, and the man who won that settlement for the family is back with us again today for this edition of the Steele Report. And that man is Cedar Rapids attorney David O'Brien of the Dave O'Brien Law Firm. And Dave is really what I would call a very aggressive attorney, an attorney advocate for families and individuals who are seeking justice for what happened to them or to a loved one. So Dave, welcome back to the Steele Report. Is that an accurate description of who you are? You really are seeking justice for Iowa families or individuals, aren't you?
That is certainly the goal. I think it's a very accurate description. And it's good to be here with you.
Yeah, the last time, Dave, we were talking about that case involving a young woman down in Burlington.
Hey, stop it!
Not my kid!
Get your dog!
She's on you? You shoot her?
Did I? Oh my God! Oh my God! 38 shots fired.
Another case where the body cam video proved to be very, very important in this case, as it was in the Drew Edwards case out of Maquoketa. The fact that a lot of law enforcement agencies seem to be very, very reluctant to release that body cam video. You are someone who has really been after them to release the footage, because I would think that officers would want that body cam video to be out there to protect themselves. So what's your thought on that?
Well, I agree with your assessment. And if I were a police officer, I'd want that body cam on all the time, and I'd want to make sure it worked well and all the video was preserved, because I wouldn't violate people's civil rights. And the truth of the matter is, around 90% of our law enforcement officers are out there all day, every day, doing a difficult job and not violating people's civil rights. And they want those body cams on, and they want to be able to prove that. And I can tell you, for every case I file, I look at a dozen or more cases where body cam video exonerates the officers of any wrongdoing.
A lot of law enforcement officials might say that you're actually against law enforcement, but in fact, you actually are very pro-law enforcement. You just want to make sure that law officers are well trained and do the job to the best of their ability. In fact, the video we're looking at right now is that case I referred to out of Burlington with Autumn Steele's death, which actually started with a simple, what I guess we'd say is a simple dog bite situation. It was an accidental shooting, and the officer, I know we talked about this in our previous show, felt horrible about what happened, but still the family deserved justice, and that's what you were going after, not necessarily to punish the officer or the Burlington Police Department.
Well, I think that's right. And the problem we have right now is our systems of justice, both civil and criminal, are based upon an adversarial setup. So in a criminal case, you have prosecutors and law enforcement officers who are gathering evidence of wrongdoing and then trying to prove that wrongdoing in a court of law. And then you have defense attorneys and investigators they may hire who are trying to gather evidence showing that exonerates the person of wrongdoing and showing that they shouldn't be convicted of a crime. And that system works really well. Same thing in these civil cases that I do. The problem becomes when a fellow law enforcement officer has allegedly been accused of wrongdoing, that system gets turned on its head and just doesn't work. Prosecutors have too much of an incentive to try to exonerate the officers from wrongdoing, and certainly their fellow officers have an incentive to try to find evidence that doesn't implicate them in wrongdoing, but relieves them of wrongdoing. And so our system just doesn't really work very well. And we've got to change that, because that means that wrongdoing is going on without being challenged. And then, of course, people don't learn their lesson and we repeat mistakes. So that's kind of where I step in on the civil side. But I do believe we have to look at doing some things differently on the criminal side as well. And Ron, I would add, I'm not accusing anyone of intentional wrongdoing. I'm not. I don't think that's the case here. I just think when a prosecutor who deals with police every day and relies on police to gather evidence in cases that prosecutor takes to court and prosecutes, they just have an incentive to circle the wagons and try to protect their own. And I think that's true in pretty much any profession, but it has particularly difficult and very challenging consequences when we're talking about law enforcement officers, particularly when they use deadly force.
Dave, you've been involved in many high-profile cases involving law enforcement agencies and winning judgments and settlements for Iowa families or individuals. Do you think police departments or sheriff's departments, are they in fear when they see that you're on the scene, or do they understand that really you're just seeking justice and also accountability on the part of law enforcement, because no one wins if you can't believe in your local law enforcement?
Right. I imagine that when officers find out that I'm getting involved, they know that they're going to be put through their paces. But if they did everything appropriately and followed the rules that they're supposed to follow, and that's really the irony here. I mean, we hire these people to enforce the rules against the rest of us, but they have rules they have to follow. And if they don't follow those rules, that's where I come in and try to hold them accountable, at least civilly. And you know, I think they respect that. I don't think they like being questioned, but I think they respect it. And I'm proud to say that currently on my docket, I represent the 2 law enforcement officers or their family who hired me because they know that other agencies dealing with them or with one of their loved ones committed wrongful acts. And I know I had a conversation with one of them in particular where I said, you know, I've sued members of your force. Are you sure you want to hire me? And they might not like that very much. And the response I got was, well, they're the ones that recommended that we talk to you. So that does gratify me. I'm not out there to get anybody. I do think people, if they commit wrongdoing, ought to be held accountable. And I don't think we can have a special class for law enforcement officers that says we're not going to apply that same rule that applies to the rest of us. Ron, if you were driving home tonight and you ran a stop sign and caused an accident, you would be held accountable. And if I did that kind of work, I might be the lawyer on the other side. And it doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means you need to be held accountable for the mistake you made. I feel the same way about these officers and why we have to hold them accountable. Otherwise, these kinds of things keep happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, taking responsibility, accountability is such an important part. We're going to take a real short break here on the Steele Report and come back with Cedar Rapids attorney David O'Brien in just a moment. And welcome back to this week's edition of the Steele Report with Cedar Rapids attorney and advocate for Iowans, David O'Brien of the O'Brien Law Firm in Cedar Rapids. Dave, I know you've done a lot of very high-profile cases and won some rather large settlements. But again, going back to we were talking about in the first segment, it's really about accountability and responsibility. And you're a very, very big advocate for the freedom of information Iowa situation, and that some people are very reluctant to release information, aren't they?
Well, they certainly are, and that becomes a real problem because there's no way citizens can hold their government agents responsible for wrongdoing if they don't find out about the wrongdoing. I've started filing these lawsuits where the certain government agencies are claiming that all this material is confidential. They might have to give it to me as part of the lawsuit, but they claim it's confidential and not to be released to the public. And I'm fighting those tooth and nail because citizens need to know what their government agents are doing on their behalf. There's a constitutional provision in the Iowa Constitution that reminds all government officials that the people are in charge and they have the right to change their government. And so they have to have the right to know what their government's doing in order to exercise that right. There's a particular FOIA law that's involved. The Iowa Freedom of Information Council, which I'm sure you're either a member of or very familiar with, is doing great work in this area. Randy Evans out of Des Moines.
Exactly.
They were able to procure a settlement with Polk County about releasing some video in the Isaiah Hayes case, which is a tragic circumstances. Isaiah made a ton of mistakes the night he stole a car and took off and led on a high-speed chase, but he got out and started running and they shot him straight through the back. And I think that's pretty hard to justify. But again, The video now is out there and people can look at it and make their own determinations.
It's kind of interesting that the taxpayers foot the bill for the body cameras themselves, don't they? But then sometimes law enforcement agencies are very, very reluctant. And like you say, you have to fight tooth and nail to get that body cam video released, when really the public should be able to view that, shouldn't they?
Well, they should, and I know that some law enforcement agencies sold the idea of funding for body cams on the grounds that it would be good for the public to know what was going on, and then they've kind of retracted that when it comes time to present a body cam that might put them in something less than favorable light, and we just can't have it. It can't work just one way. If the body cam videos are public access, then they need to be released when it shows law enforcement officers acting appropriately, but they also need to be released when it shows them potentially acting inappropriately. And the government agencies are starting to come around. I imagine it'll be a long time before Polk County tries to prohibit the public from seeing body cam video as a result of having to pay $100,000 in damages to the Iowa Freedom of Information Council. I got a good decision from Magistrate Judge Adams out of Des Moines in a case again against Burlington on the Marquise Jones shooting, where she ordered them to release all of the body cam video and other evidence that was gathered within the first 96 hours of the incident. And that follows the Iowa Supreme Court case in Mitchell versus Cedar Rapids, which is not a wrongful death case, but a shooting case by a police officer that caused some paralysis, where the shooter was, there's videotape, body cam video of the shooting, and they were trying to keep that private. So, you just have to let this stuff be out there and let the public that wants to look at it and make their own determinations.
I want to go back to the case in Burlington. When you were on the program last time, it was that 2015 case involving the 34-year-old woman, Autumn Steele. And that case was one where the Burlington Police Department really fought to keep that video from being released. And my question always is, what's there to hide? Why hold back on that? You can always say, well, it interferes with the investigation, but I don't buy that if the investigators have done the proper job. What's your take on that?
Well, I think the investigation is there, but if nobody finds out what the investigation found, then they can keep it undercover, and that's what they did. That case, that FOIA case is still going, now going on 5 years after, and they've never released a scrap of paper in the Autumn Steele shooting and killing or a video because of the FOIA process, which shows you how ineffective that process can be. Now, that video did come out as a result of the lawsuit I filed, but I can't take credit for that because there was a confidentiality order in place. And again, the Freedom of Information Council and their excellent attorney out of Des Moines, Mike Giudice, got involved in that case and got after we settled, they intervened in the case and got the judge to release much of the material, but not all of it. And that was very helpful in the public understand what was going on and justifying that. I believe it was a $2 million settlement in that case.
Yeah.
And this is an officer that knew right away what he'd done was wrong, and he said, I'm going to prison. And they didn't want people to find out about that. Ron, if anybody else would have done what this officer did, I think they would have been facing a criminal sanction, any non-law enforcement officer.
Right. I remember watching that video, and the officer was visibly upset about what he had done. There's no doubt about that. But if you have like Mike Giudice and Randy Evans of the Freedom of Information Council coming after you, you better understand that they really mean business, and it's for the public. It's not to try and go after somebody or make them look bad. It's the fact that the public has a right to know under the Freedom of Information rules and regulations.
That's exactly right. In the Isaiah Hayes case, which we talked about earlier, they kept that hidden, and I didn't have anything to do with getting that released, but I think the fact that we filed the lawsuit probably only a few weeks before the statute of limitations ran, that there was now no legitimate reason to try to keep that battle up. I don't know if that played a role, but I suspect it did. If they would have been able to successfully run out the clock on the 2-year statute of limitations, but we filed the lawsuit having not seen the material, just based on questions we had. And then once we got the material, it certainly showed our suspicions to have some solid basis in fact. And if not, I would have immediately dismissed the lawsuit. But after viewing the video, I feel stronger than ever that we've got a legitimate claim against the officer involved.
You know, now more than ever, and the George Floyd situation obviously showed this, there are many people in the public who are also shooting their own body cam-like video, and the George Floyd death was such a tragedy and so unfortunate.
And you know, one of the things that I was gratified about that case is I saw the video, and like everyone, I was appalled. But I think it was within a day or two, and those officers were not only fired, they were arrested, and that is unheard of in Iowa. And you know, I think we need to put some sort of public policy in place, a statewide board with actual independent prosecutorial budgeting that allows an independent prosecutor to be hired, I should say, and then also allows for independent investigators to investigate these few and far between situations where someone's been killed or seriously injured by conduct of a law enforcement officer, and there's some belief that it may have been done wrongfully. We've got to come up with a better system to hold everyone accountable criminally, not just civilly. But that's something I plan to be working on in the next year or so.
You can also these days rely on the public, can't you? In some cases, for your cases, because a lot of people are shooting their cell phone video.
Yes, that is possible. In the Drew Edwards case, we didn't have any cell phone video. Sometimes it gets a little more difficult because things are happening at night. But yes, if there's other video available, then they have no right to try to keep that private. And we haven't really run into any problem with that end of it. But you know, having video of an incident is perfect because it just shows what happened. And you can believe what somebody's telling you, or you can believe your own lying eyes, I guess.
What kind of reaction do you get in these lawsuit situations?
I will tell you this, I've been treated professionally, and I treat the officers professionally, and I think they know that. The lawyers that defend these cases are good lawyers. I know almost all of them very well. We've had many cases together. I respect them. They're doing a job. That's how that adversarial system works. We finally get this factual scenario where somebody's saying, hey, what you did is wrong, and the other side's saying, no, wait a minute, what we did was fine, and then the truth comes out. So no, I haven't really run into any of that. There's been a few times where I've kind of been worried about filing a lawsuit and then driving into that little small town to take depositions, thinking I might get picked up for speeding. I make sure I don't go over the speed limit. But I really just haven't run into that problem. And I think that again tells you that we do have professional law enforcement in this state. And that's a good thing. There's a reason there are not very many attorneys in this state that do what I do. It's because there isn't that much work to be had. Most of our law enforcement officers are out there doing a good job and not violating people's civil rights, and we're lucky to have that.
Yeah, I agree totally. I can tell you 99.9% of the officers that I have met over the years, I feel exactly as you do, that they're honest, they want to do the job, they want to weed out the bad actors, the people who abuse their powers. They definitely are they're for the blue, backing the blue, as most of us do, because the fact is we benefit as a public when you have honest, hardworking, dedicated law enforcement officers, and that's what you're doing too in a roundabout way. It may not look like it, but you're actually pro-law enforcement.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I'm sure there's some officers I've sued that wouldn't quite see it that way, but that's just the way the system works.
The George Floyd case, they acted really swiftly and decisively in that case, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that around the country, particularly just given the nature of what's going on in the nation right now with law enforcement, and people are trying to regain confidence in our law enforcement.
And it did remind me that in these cases that I've handled, no criminal charges have ever been filed, and in fact, none of these officers ever been reprimanded. So I'm not really sure that our internal policies and procedures for our law enforcement officers are working very well. But the good news is the DCI does investigate these things, and they're a good investigative agencies, and the facts we need are always there. Sometimes they don't identify them or highlight them in their reports, but we get the photos, we get the information that we need in order to determine whether some wrongdoing was done, and that is a good thing.
We're going to take another short break here on the Steele Report with Cedar Rapids attorney Dave O'Brien. We'll come right back to wrap things up here in just a moment. And welcome back to our third and final edition this week on the Steele Report with Cedar Rapids attorney and advocate for families and individuals seeking justice in Iowa. That is David O'Brien. And Dave, you know, one of the things that's really going to be key, I think, for you moving forward, in addition to representing families who feel that they've been wronged, and many of them, as you've proven in the settlements, have been wronged and have got some sort of justice. You can't bring that family member back, but they get some kind of settlement or something that at least relieves a little bit of pain. But the main thing is policy changes. You're a very big advocate of policy changes going forward. What kind of policy changes are necessary, do you think, as Iowa moves into the future?
Well, as you know, we've had some success holding law enforcement officers and their agencies responsible from a civil standpoint, having to pay damages for the injuries, harms that they've caused. But a lot of the family members of individuals who have been killed by wrongful conduct by police officers, and Autumn Steele is a perfect example. Her mother is a tireless advocate for this, and she, regardless of how many times we've spoken about it, she just doesn't understand why this officer wasn't held criminally responsible. Anyone not wearing a blue uniform who acted as he did that day would have faced some level of criminal charge. Keep in mind that, you know, if you negligently caused the death of another, you could be held accountable under Iowa law, and he wasn't. And I'm going to be proposing through some of our legislators that we enact a statewide board that will look at independent prosecutors and independent investigators for these serious cases where police officers are accused of wrongdoing, and we can remove that disincentive that I talked about earlier for prosecutors and law enforcement officers to try to find evidence of innocence as opposed to try to gather evidence of guilt.
I know at one point you took the Sioux City Police Department to task over some high-speed chases. So what was that case all about?
Well, that was actually my first one, and I lost that case because it wasn't a very long chase. It was a guy ran a stop sign, and then they were chasing him through town, you know, at 60, 70, 80 miles per hour, which is crazy. Because, you know, it's a running a stop sign, and you put people at risk for doing that. The guy they were chasing actually ended up T-boning and seriously injuring someone. And I did lose that case, but I'm very proud of that case because the Sioux City Police Department changed their policies after that and said, yeah, we're not going to engage in high-speed chases during the middle of the day for minor traffic violations. It just puts too many people at risk.
Grundy County, there was a case you were involved in, which actually led to some changes involved as far as making sure that criminals are not in a suicidal situation, right?
Yeah, the problem there was they didn't have the funding. They had one jailer, and this young man committed suicide, even though his dad, who's this wonderful person that had his son's best interest and had called and was pushing and saying, I think he's suicidal, you got to take care of this kid. And they just didn't do it. And they only had one person on duty. And protocol was when they found him hanging, not to go in there because out of fear would be an escape attempt. And I don't remember the exact amount of time, but it was like 13 minutes later before backup got there. And they were finally able to get him down. And they did change their policies as a result of that. And they also paid $500,000 in damages to the family and the deceased man's children. And it's a very, very unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah, we're going to wrap things up here in a moment here, Dave. I know we mentioned earlier, almost every officer that I know, in fact, I can't think of an officer that I know that doesn't believe body cameras are a good thing for the officer and for the public. And that's what the point you're trying to get across too, that accountability, responsibility, and those cameras can be a valuable tool.
For every case I take, there's a dozen or more that I don't take because we look at the body cam and it shows the officer acting appropriately. And if the officers know that, and what we can't have, we just can't have a situation where if it exonerates the officer, we release it to the public. If it implicates the officer in wrongdoing, then we get to keep it private. Public policy just won't work that way. Our government won't work that way. Our Constitution doesn't allow it, and I'm just going to keep fighting that issue until we get it fully corrected.
All right, Cedar Rapids attorney David O'Brien, I really appreciate. What's your organization called? It used to be the Iowa Trial Lawyers Association. What's it called now? The Justice something.
Iowa Association for Justice.
Right.
Yes,
Iowa
I'm very
Association.
active in that group, and they're in the forefront on leading this fight as well.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that the last time you were on the show. I just couldn't recall, but I know that you changed the name there, and we appreciate taking the time, Dave, to come back on the Steele Report. Stay in touch, and we'll have you back on here in the future to see what you're up to these days. I'm sure you're going to be extremely busy.
Well, it's always good to talk to you, Ron.
Once again, thanks to Dave O'Brien for coming on, taking the time to be a part of the program. A reminder, all of our programs are on kwwo.com. Just go into the homepage there, kwwo.com, go up to the watch section, get on down there to the Steele Report, and there you'll see all of our previous shows. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. We'll be back here next week for the Steele Report.